Hey, so we're having some fun, aren't we? This is rolling out pretty good. Now, a major reason to learn history is so we don't repeat the mistakes of the past. It's good to relitigate all these past presidential campaigns. So I'm going to talk about 2000. So the 2000 race, the Supreme Court, Bush v. Gore is going to stop the Florida recount, and then Bush is going to win. So a lot of people blame Antonin Scalia in the Supreme Court for giving Bush the victory. Some people blame Al Gore for conceding. He didn't take it to the Electoral College. He also lost his own state of Tennessee. 200,000 Democrats had voted for Baby Bush in Florida. Lots of people had voted past the margin of victory for the Pat Buchanan in Florida. So they're going to blame Nader, but they never say anything about Pat Buchanan. Right? So 2000, Nader's going to run as a Green Party ticket. Him and Winona LaDuke, who's no Ojibwe native, they're going to run together as, running mates. So Ralph Nader, Winona LaDuke, they're going to run in 2000. There was one victory. So the Green Party in Delaware and Maryland, they could establish themselves now because Nader had won 3%. So that's a victory. Delaware and Maryland has a Green Party who could be established. So because of that, there's a Green Party in Delaware and Maryland because of Ralph Nader. Now, Al Gore didn't even win his home state of Tennessee, and then shockingly, Baby Bush actually got 72% of the Muslim vote. So this whole Iraq war, Afghanistan war, Bush got 72% of the Muslim vote. He even had a meeting at a synagogue or a whatever Muslim holy house is. So Al Gore's policies. Let's just take, compare and contrast Al Gore's policies to Ralph Nader's. I just jotted a couple things. It's not comprehensive. I wish it was more comprehensive, but I think this is good for my purposes right now. First, let's listen to this clip.
No regrets? Oh, no regrets at all, especially since it's clear that the thing would have ended up the same way anyway. The press did extensive research into what would have happened if what Al Gore wanted done had been done county by county, and he would have lost anyway.
So that was Scalia saying that if Al Gore would have done the county-by-county plan, then he would have lost anyways. But if he would have done the statewide recount, he would have won. So Scalia, wasn't forthcoming with all the verdict. The media said that it could go one way or the other, depending on how the recount would have gone forward. But they stopped the recount. You could have had the recount and then, decided on the legality. And then if it was just a big shit show, you could have had, call for a re-election or call for another election, a redo. Right? There's all the hanging chads, too. So you have all these hanging chads. People aren't voting right in Florida. A whole bunch of people voted for Pat Buchanan because they thought they were voting for Al Gore. So there's a ton of problems, right? Supreme Court, Antonin Scalia, the hanging chads. But we're going to blame Nader because he won a couple votes in Florida. Right? It was Nader's fault, right? Nader lost. He stole the election. So, yeah, that's Scalia.
This is major challenges ahead.
So this here is George Dukakis.
We must work together.
Michael Dukakis.
And I extended my best wishes to him and to Mrs. Bush and to the members of the Bush family. Kitty and I.
So he's not reading the room right at all. This concession speech is being basically forced on his supporters. So they all have to look at this loser who's going to quit the day after the election. Michael Dukakis quits the day after the election. Why these assholes quit? You just spent millions of dollars. You just spent months upon months winning all of this, support, and then you're just going to quit? You're just going to give up the day after? You're not even going to take it to the Electoral College? You're not going to... God... So they're going to cheer 92, 92. So they're essentially saying, Michael Dukakis, you're still in this. Let's do it in 92. Let's see what happens. But he's done. You could tell he's quit because he kind of just laughs at them and then keeps on saying, well, Papa Bush, George H.W. Bush, he's the leader now. He's the man. Let's all just get in line and So 92, 92, 92. No, 92. Bush won. George Bush the elder won. So let's just Michael Dukakis. What a fucking douche.
And may God bless his stewardship of this country.
So this is Al Gore conceding in 2000. May God bless the stewardship of baby Bush. May God bless him. And it's all about God and God this and God that. People hated Al Gore because he was too liberal, too progressive. He seems to be, too not in reality. Does he believe in science? Fucking God. There ain't no God, fucking Al Gore.
Neither he nor I anticipated this long and difficult road. Certainly neither of us wanted it to happen. Yet it came, and now it has ended. Resolved as it must be resolved through the honored institutions of our democracy. Over the library of one of our great law schools is inscribed the motto, not under man, but under God and law. That's the ruling principle of American freedom, the source of our democratic liberty. I've tried to make it my guide throughout this contest, as it has guided Americans' deliberations of all the complex issues of the past 5 weeks.
Lockbox. So here's more Michael Dukakis, right? Some Dukakis, 92. His crowd is energized, excited, but he's like, look, assholes, I'm trying to quit, okay? Quit being, excited about my campaign. I'm done. This is it. I'm never going to be president.
He and I
92.
also had a chance to talk to Lloyd and B.A. Benson.
Yes, it's a the running mate or something.
And I know we express your feelings when
Now the U.S. Supreme
So they're going to sit there and, try to make you all excited about them quitting. Okay, good. Thank you for quitting.
Court has spoken. Let there be no doubt. While I strongly disagree with the court's decision, I accept it.
While Al Gore strongly disagrees with the Supreme Court decision, he accepts it. Hey, God, it would have been hard to actually listen to this asshole. Well, Al Gore, lockbox, but that's superficial, right? So, okay, let's talk about Al Gore's policies. Al Gore had chose Joe Lieberman. Joe Lieberman's a war hawk. Joe Lieberman loved the Iraq War. He loves killing Palestinians all the live long day. Joe Lieberman, I don't even know why he's a Democrat. He's a conservative Democrat, and maybe that's why Al Gore picked him as his VP to, try to win the conservatives over. I heard he was liberal later on. If he was, then that means he could have talked about so many issues that he didn't talk about. But when it comes to military intervention, he had picked Joe Lieberman, right? Joe Lieberman is a war hawk. Why would you pick that as your VP if that didn't represent something about you? He was for some military intervention. He was for the military intervention in Haiti. That was a good operation. He was for the Balkans, going in there for humanitarian reasons, war in Serbia, in the Middle East. There was some shit going on with Saddam Hussein under Bill Clinton, but he was opposed to Somalia. So he had some limitations, but he was for the Serbia war, the war in Iraq, the Haiti restoration of democracy, which is actually, started by the predecessor. Papa Bush had, coup d'etat them, and then Clinton had actually restored democracy. So the Haiti thing is wonderful. The Haiti thing is great. Now, baby Bush, who's going to be Mr. Empire, he said he wasn't for nation building. He said that he wasn't for, an aggressive American foreign policy. But Papa Bush, he's the one that actually started the Somalian war. Bill Clinton inherited. So baby Bush is going to sit there and criticize Al Gore for Somalia, which he disavows. But it was his father, baby Bush's father, who started it, put it on to Bill Clinton. Then Bill Clinton tried to fight it, didn't work. He pulled out, Black Hawk down. He withdrew, so we lost that war. But I think sometimes a withdrawal in a war that we shouldn't be in is a good thing. So it's Papa Bush who started it. It was Papa Bush who started it. So that means you had baby Bush who's sitting there criticizing Al Gore for Bill Clinton's policies when it was his father who had started it. He acted like it was Bill Clinton's fault when it was actually his daddy's fault. So these motherfuckers are thicker than thieves. So Al Gore, he's, all about the wars in the Balkans, the wars in the Middle East, not Somalia, but he also said when it comes to the Rwanda genocide, we should give them humanitarian aid, but no military aid. talked about a humanitarian crisis. Why would we not intervene in Rwanda? So there's genocide that's happening, but some reason he's saying let's not stop a genocide. Let's just give them humanitarian aid. Al Gore supports vigorous intervention abroad. Baby Bush was less so. Baby Bush ran on a, kind and gentler foreign policy. Al Gore, he was all about intervention. Al Gore wanted to overthrow Saddam Hussein. Al Gore said he knew that Saddam Hussein's got weapons of mass destruction. He's got vast secret supplies of weapons of mass destruction. And then Al Gore wants to protect Israel, doesn't give a shit about Palestine, and he supported the first Iraq War, the first Gulf War. And then he supported Bill Clinton's 1998 airstrikes on Iraq. So Al Gore, would he have not declared war on Iraq? 9/11 happens on Al Gore's watch. You're telling me that we're not in Iraq? We are. We are going to go to Iraq. That's Israel's biggest enemy. He's all about intervention. He supported the first Gulf War. He supported Bill Clinton's 1998 airstrikes on Iraq. And he, says that he wasn't for Somalia. He wasn't for intervention in Somalia. He wasn't for intervention in Rwanda genocide. But he doesn't say that he's not in for intervention into Iraq. He actually says that he knew that Saddam's got weapons of mass destruction, which is the lie that, Baby Bush is going to use to push us into this war. So can you guarantee me without a doubt that Al Gore would not have got us into the Iraq War? You know who would have not got us into the Iraq War? Ralph Nader. Ralph fucking Nader.
I accept the finality of this outcome, which will be ratified next Monday in the Electoral College.
So Al Gore accepts the decision. He called Bush. He said he's not going to call him no more, I guess, to complain about the election. And then he accepts the finality of the Supreme Court decision. It's going to be ratified in the Electoral College in 5 days. So he had 5 more days to go to the Electoral College. We could have had a brokered convention if he was a fighter. If he was a fighter, he could have won those, Electoral College voters.
And tonight, for the sake of our unity as a people and the strength of our democracy, I offer my concession. I also accept my responsibility, which I will discharge unconditionally, to honor the new president-elect and do everything possible to help him greater than that which divides us. While we yet hold and do not yield our opposing beliefs, there is a higher duty than the one we owe to political parties. This is America, and we put country before party. We will stand together behind our new president.
So if you're a Republican, right, you just got cheated by the Republicans, you like to hear that thing. Oh, that's smart. That's such a great idea. I'm glad that Al Gore quit and gave up and just gave the presidency to the Republicans. But no, we're going to blame Al Gore. Right? We're going to blame Ralph Nader. Al Gore lost because of Al Gore. He couldn't beat that bumbling Texas. So that's what Al Gore did. So Al Gore just pointed out that Baby Bush kept doing a bunch of gaffes. He kept, speaking wrong and incorrectly. So he just kept saying, well, he can't, he's incompetent. He can't even talk right. That's Al Gore's campaign. So Baby Bush is going to criticize Clinton's Black Hawk Down failure in Somalia and in Serbia. And he says that he's not for nation building. So he's running on a peaceful American foreign policy, whereas who knows where, So Baby Bush said he's going to bring back integrity, honor, and dignity to the White House, which is a shot at Bill Clinton, right? He went ahead and, stained the White House for what? Getting a blowjob? No, the impeachment was the bullshit. So Baby Bush will later on question, what's really the meaning of the word dignity? So he wanted to bring back integrity, honor, and dignity to the White House after Bill Clinton had sullied it. But then later on, he's like, what really is the meaning of the word dignity? You're right. I mean, it's like a United Nations, the Declaration of Human Rights, something about dignities in there. So, well, what is the meaning of the word dignity? So Joe Lieberman was one of the first to criticize Bill Clinton getting his dick sucked in the Oval Office by somebody who's not his wife. So Joe Lieberman is sitting there, shitting on Bill Clinton, and you got Baby Bush shitting on Bill Clinton. You have Al Gore running away from Bill Clinton. So if you wanted the new modern economy, if you want to, run on the auspices of the good job that his predecessor had done, but instead he ran away from all that. So it's just Al Gore on his own. Okay, Al Gore's he's not going to need any help from Bill Clinton. What's Al Gore going to do for America? So let's see. He's sitting there saying Baby Bush can't talk right, so therefore he can't become president. He had that really gross kiss. Remember that gross kiss at the Democratic convention with his wife, Tipper Gore? And then Tipper Gore is fucking with Eminem, and Al Gore is going to push for voluntary record lyric labeling. So that means voluntarily just say whether or not that's mature content or something. So that's what Al Gore is going to do. He's going to make sure that the record companies puts labels, and if it's, you know, not suitable for kids, it needs to be labeled. He's, you know, for kissing his wife real disgustingly in front of everybody. He's saying Baby Bush, you know, has all these mistakes. Okay, so far I haven't heard anything, okay? So he pushed for voluntary record lyric labeling. He was for non-government universal health care versus Ralph Nader, who was for single payer, a Bernie care-like health care system. So Ralph Nader was pushing for Bernie care 20 years ago. But Al Gore said, no, we're going to make sure we protect the private insurance companies, and we're going to have a non-government universal health care plan, which is what Obama's going to pass, which is what the Republicans have pushed for. He said he wasn't going to boycott the Confederate flag. He said no voting rights for ex-felons. No voting rights for ex-felons. He's pro-affirmative action. That's a good thing. Pro-civil unions, but not gay marriage. Let gays serve openly in the military, in don't ask, don't tell, but no gay marriage. So he's opposed to gay marriage. He's in favor of civil unions. He's for affirmative action. He's not for giving ex-felons the right to vote even after they've served their time. He's in favor of the death penalty. So Kamala Harris and Joe Biden would be more progressive on the death penalty. And then he's pro-broken windows theory of law enforcement. So that's Rudy Giuliani. If you know, he was there with the 1994 crime bill, so he's all about, you know, more police, tougher penalties, and then he also said something about victims' rights. And then he wanted weekly drug tests for parolees. He had smoked pot as a youngster, but he wasn't talking about legalizing or fighting the war on drugs. In fact, he was saying that we needed weekly drug tests for the parolees. Al Gore was going to take the Clinton surplus and put it into a rainy day fund. That would have been nice instead of going into debt. We're in $22 trillion debt, so Clinton did balance the budget. The economy is doing good under Clinton. There's a lot of good things that Al Gore could have picked up from Clinton and then try to make it better. At the debates, Al Gore is going to take credit for the initiative. He was part of the initiative to create the Internet, which I wonder where that comes from, because the Internet was created, I think, in the 70s, so I don't think he's been around that long. What initiative is he talking about? He had the initiative. He was responsible. But anyways, they made fun of him saying that he created the Internet. No, he just did an initiative to help create the Internet. So that was, you know, something, I'm sure, I don't know, I could find out later. He was, you know, one good thing, he's pro-choice. He was pro-Roe versus Wade, pro the morning after pill. He was anti-Bush tax cuts. So the RU-486 pill, the morning after pill, he's in favor of it, pro-Roe v. Wade. So, you know, mostly pro-choice. It seems like anti-Bush tax cuts. He's for some social welfare programs protecting Medicare, Social Security. He also talked about campaign finance reform and gun control. So those are the issues that Al Gore talked about during the 2000 campaign. Now, I just jotted a couple things down here about Ralph Nader. Actually, let's listen to some more Al Gore conceding.
As for what I'll do next, I don't know the answer to that one yet. Like many of you, I'm looking forward to spending the holidays with family and old friends. I know I'll spend time in Tennessee and mend some fences.
Mend some fences, right? But he pissed people off in Tennessee. Because he lost Tennessee. And then he also said, you know, the holidays are coming up. That's what it was all about. Supreme Court, you know, the holidays, Al Gore, just fucking quit. Just give up, right? You got the Christmas coming up. You don't want to think about all the matters of the imperial presidency on Christmas. Don't you want to just hang out, you know, with your eggnog?
Literally and figuratively. Some have asked whether I have any regrets. And I do have one regret, that I didn't get the chance to stay and fight for the American people over the next 4 years.
You could have stayed and fight for 5 more fucking days, Al Gore. You could have actually took it to the Electoral College. That's how John Quincy Adams won the presidency in 1824. Andrew Jackson actually won the popular vote, but he took it to the Electoral College, and then John Quincy Adams ended up winning. So that's a close election, right? 1876, 1800, those are close elections. Supreme Court didn't decide those elections. Ultimately, it's up to the politics. It's a political situation, so it's not for the judiciary to intervene. It's the executive, right? So the Al fucking Gore. So let's talk about some Nader's policies here in a second.
Especially for those who need burdens lifted and barriers removed. Especially for those who feel their voices have not been heard. I heard you, and I will not forget.
He's super serial, guys. He's super serial. So Ralph Nader, his policies, he was highly critical of corporate power. He wanted campaign finance reform, actually getting it done. He wanted single-payer universal health care, not this non-government protect the private insurance. He wanted Bernie care. Ralph Nader was talking about Bernie care 20 years ago. He was for housing and free college. Free college. Where's all his free college? So he's beat Ralph Nader is better on health care than Al Gore. He's better than, on corporations and free college and housing, working rights. So he wanted a workers' bill of rights, increase the minimum wage to $10 an hour. Ralph Nader wanted to raise minimum wage to $10 an hour. We're talking about $15 minimum, $15 minimum wage right now in New York City. So the fact that there is $10 minimum wage, $10 an hour minimum wage was on the table. That's, Nader was talking about that 20 years ago. So it was, what, $10 an hour? That's so crazy. Minimum wage was $7 back then. So, he was like way ahead of his time with just $10 an hour. $10 an hour still would actually help a lot of states today. Colorado's got $10 minimum wage, but a lot of states in America don't even have $10 an hour yet. So everything Nader was talking about, we're all talking about today. He wanted to reduce military spending in the empire, stop these wars. He wanted to fight against the war on drugs. He would have legalized marijuana. So Ralph Nader, when it comes to, privacy rights, when it comes to fighting against this Nixonian, so many things. Nader was really good with consumer protections. Nader was really good with protecting the environment. During the 60s, he was started the Consumer Revolution. So you have labels on foods because of Nader. You have the Clean Water Act and the Clean Air Act because of Ralph Nader. You have seatbelts in cars because of Ralph Nader. All these cars have all these safety features now that they use to sell their cars. So he actually made the car manufacturing companies better. They put out a better product, and now they could sell more. So he helped those corporations. Nader also really hated, pollution credits, and he hated the giveaways of publicly owned assets. He says this over and over again. So in our national fields, when it comes to a lot of things, broadcasting, when it comes to our national forest, this land is for you and me. So our national forest is collective ownership for, all Americans own the national forest. And so whenever an oil company goes to a national forest for pennies on the dollar, and then they're able to take that oil from they're taking our oil. And they do it for pennies on the dollar when we could use that oil, we could use the profits, we could do something with it, but just giving it to the corporations so they can mine it all and take all the profits for themselves, that's just, we're just giving away publicly owned assets. And so Nader was big about, protecting our assets, our publicly owned assets. When it comes to the WTO, he was opposed to the World Trade Organization, not because he's against, world trade and organizing, but because it wasn't democratic. And then he was also opposed to NAFTA. And so Nader, when it comes to, there's a big anti-WTO protest. There is Democratic conventions. Nader was the electoral representation of the dissent and the, frustration on the streets. So Nader is just good on I only mentioned about a dozen things, and I guarantee you heard every single one of them. Well, when it comes to Al Gore, you probably went in and out on the things he was talking about. So just a few things from memory and a couple things from a few articles. That's what Nader was running on. So highly critical corporate power, single-payer universal health care, free college, $10 minimum wage, end the war on drugs, legalize marijuana, reduce military spending, end the empire. Stop giving away our publicly owned assets to these damn predatory corporations. And he's opposed to the pollution credits and fuck NAFTA and fuck the WTO. So when people point to Nader and say, hey, it's your fault, and he's like, Nader's great. Essentially he's like, that's the point of running an election. Of course I want to take his votes. He's trying to take my votes, I'm trying to take his votes. And if Gore is serious about taking Nader votes, then he would have actually spoke some progressive ideas, and then he would have won me over. But instead, Gore loses. Nader, he's going to say to Gore, if he can't beat the bumbling Texas governor with that terrible record, he ought to go back to Tennessee. So for Nader, Baby Bush was bumbling Texas governor, had a terrible record. If you're progressive, if you actually spoke to the American people, compared to that bumbling Texas governor with that terrible record, you would have won. You would have done fine. If you can't beat him, though, you got problems, right? You got problems. If you're not a progressive and you can't win the American people over and he's got that terrible record, he can't even talk right, You should go back to Tennessee. So Ralph Nader was right when it comes to, he's allowed to run. The fact that people that's the whole political theater of America. What, someone else wants to run in this election? How dare they? Why be afraid? They're going to get 1%. Why be afraid of that? And if you're actually concerned that their 1% is going to, flip the election, then you need to win those voters over by speaking to the issues that they believe in. So, so that's an update on the 2000. Why did Al Gore lose in 2000? Because Al Gore lost. Why did Hillary Clinton lose in 2016? Because Hillary Clinton lost. It wasn't WikiLeaks, it wasn't Wikipedia, it wasn't, whatever shit you could come up with. It wasn't the Little Green Party, it wasn't, Comey and the FBI, it wasn't this and that. It was Hillary Clinton lost because Hillary lost. Al Gore lost because Al Gore lost. John Kerry lost because John Kerry lost. So the whole Russia bullshit is just basically the Democrats not wanting to look in the mirror and look at themselves and realize that they run shitty candidates, and then they just want to just be dicks. Bill Maher is sitting there saying, get in line, you little shits. We need to vote for Joe Biden. Hurry up and back Joe Biden. Get in line, you little shits. Now, fuck you, Bill Maher. He's rich. He's privileged. He don't give a shit if we actually have a good country or not. He'll go ahead and sell us out for, a neoliberal right-winger. And that's what Bill Clinton was, a neoliberal right-winger. If there's anything, with the Hillary Clinton race, Al Gore, John Kerry, the American people are sick of these Democrats who are not progressives. These Democrats that pretend like Republicans are losing. These Democrats who pretend like Republicans keep losing. So Democrats are so goddamn smart, why do they lose elections? So by looking at the 2000 election, Bush v. Gore, we learn a lot of things. It wasn't Nader at all, and Al Gore lost it on his own. He lost it. 200,000 Democrats in Florida voted for Baby Bush. He couldn't even win enough Democrats, so he couldn't even win Tennessee. It was a pretty pathetic performance. He lost by 5 electoral votes. If Al Gore would have put a little bit more effort into his campaign, but you could hear him. He talks like an asshole. He talks real boring and stupid, so he probably doesn't even know what the hell's going on. So yeah, there's the 2000 election. Nader was not a spoiler. He's not to blame. Nader, if anything, is the one that talked about all the ideas that we're talking about now. So Nader would be the heartbeat of the Democratic Party. He'd be the heartbeat. So he's to blame? Okay, then that means you should be a Republican. No, go be a Republican. Okay.